Israel was seeking salvation, but they couldn't obtain it. Why? Because they wanted to go in according to their rules. They thought circumcision was enough. But God is saying, your circumcision doesn't mean anything to me. For all your circumcision, you still live in sin. You still commit sin. We see a lot of that in our midst today. Many people lay claim to being born again, but they are living in sin, abject sin. And you cannot continue in sin and keep claiming to be a believer. You are not a believer. In fact, somebody told me today, he said, I'm born again, no, but I'm backsliding. I said, those two words don't go together. Once you are backsliding, you are out of it. Returning means you are coming back to be born again. And we must ask the question, if he was really born again the first time. Verse 8. Just as it is written, God has given them a spirit of stupor, eyes that they should not see, and ears that they should not hear, to this very day. And David says, let their table become a snare and a trap, a stumbling block and a recompense to them. Let their eyes be darkened so that they do not see, and bow down their back always. I say then, have they stumbled that they should fall? Certainly not. But through their fall, to provoke them to jealousy, salvation has come to the Gentiles. The moment, you see, God said, these people will not receive, they will not accept the salvation I'm offering them. So let me give it to the Gentiles. When they see the Gentiles receiving my salvation, receiving the joy, the peace, and the righteousness that comes with that blessedness, they will be jealous and start coming. Do you understand that? So the salvation of the Jews was of the Gentiles was to provoke the Jews to jealousy so that they can seek it the way the Gentiles have sought it, not the way they have been seeking it. They have been seeking it through law. The Gentiles got it without law. They got it just like that, by believing Jesus Christ. Actually, I feel very sorry for the Jews because it's very difficult for them. Jesus Christ was a Jew in the natural. It's like somebody mentioning one Nigerian. I said that Nigerian that were executed for armed robbery is the Messiah. Would you believe it? It will be difficult, except by prayer. I believe that many of our Christian brothers who are going to Israel on pilgrimage, I want to believe that it's part of God's plan for them to be able to reveal to the Jews that you guys need to come to God. But instead of doing these things, the same way we have been behaving in our various homes, in our various home countries, is the way we are behaving there. We just huddle together in one place. We have our praise and worship and then we go away. We don't talk to them. We don't interact with them. It's like when we go overseas, just go overseas to any, especially a church that is pastored by a Nigerian. All you find are Nigerians. Mostly. I know there are a few where the pastors are Nigerians and yet the church is a very good mix. But more often than not, that's what you find. And yet we are supposed to go out there and minister to these people and say, look, this message is for all. Not just for us, but for everyone. Provoke the Jews to jealousy. Verse 12. Now, if their fall is riches for the world, and their failure riches for the Gentiles, how much more their fullness? For I speak to you, Gentiles, inasmuch as I am an apostle to the Gentiles, I magnify my ministry. If by any means I must provoke to jealousy those who are my flesh, and save some of them. For if their being cast away is a reconciling of the world, what will their acceptance be but life from the dead? Note what he's trying to say here. These are already God's people. Do you understand? The only problem is that the salvation they have been seeking, they want it their own way. So God booted them out. Now he's saying that if these people, these same people that have been booted out, if they were now to come and believe Christ, how quickly do you think they will be received? Immediately. Let me give an illustration. In a house, a man has children. He has been trying to do something for his children, but his children has been throwing him away. So, because he's a generous man, he goes to the community and starts picking people from the streets. And he brings them into his house and is taking care of them. And then his children one day look and say, why is our father's house filled with strangers? So, let us return home. What do you think will happen if that child returns? Do you know, before he even says, I'm sorry, the father has brought him in. You remember the prodigal son? That's what the Lord Jesus was talking about, prodigal son. How the father brought him in. That, you have come. That's what he's saying here. That what I'm doing it to provoke my people to jealousy. So that they will come. But I know that if they come, before they even take up, the Holy Spirit will snap them up. And that's what should be at the back of our minds. That all we need to do is just get a word in. If that Jew should believe, he will be snapped up immediately. Verse 16. For if the first fruit is holy, the lump is also holy. And if the root is holy, so are the branches. And if some of the branches were broken off, and you, being a wild olive tree, were grafted in among them, that same expression I gave you is using grafting agriculture to explain it. And with them became a partaker of the root and fatness of the olive tree. Do not boast against the branches, but if you do boast, remember that you do not support the root, but the root supports you. You will say then, branches were broken off that I might be grafted in. Well said. Because of unbelief, because of what? Unbelief, they were broken off. And you stand by faith. Do not be haughty, but fear. The only reason why the Jews, many Jews, are not Christians today is one simple thing. They have refused to believe and accept Christ as the Savior. The day any one of them accepted, bam, he snapped up immediately into the kingdom. Because they are natural. Do you understand? We are the ones who have been brought in